I'm MINNEN from the Free University of Brussels, the Vrije Universiteit of Brussels, and I'm coming from a really different perspective. I'm doing social science. I'm a sociologist, so not an engineer, which is kind of different here in the audience, I think. But today I'm going to present you MOTUS, which is actually a software tool that is able to collect the behavior of people, but also the context of people, because we really find it so much interesting that also the context of what people are doing is really captured, because that makes you understand why people are doing a certain activity. And it's only when you understand something that you can attach policy to it. If you don't know why people are doing a certain activity on a certain place, you cannot change it. So MOTUS actually is being developed from the methodology of time use research. And the methodology of time use research has a really large history. It's being used in entire Europe by every member state, so I'm going to give you a bit of a history. But I'm also going to briefly explain you what the added value of time use research is. Then I'm just going to present you the MOTUS software platform. It's actually a platform that doesn't have a direct goal. You can use it, or you can define it, or you can build researchers within it. So it's not related to a specific topic. It's there to be redefined and then being used in certain circumstances. It's also already been used since 2011. As an example, end of last year, we collected about 10,000 information of 10,000 teachers, 70,000 diary days, over 1 million activities in 2 months' time. But tomorrow, actually on Monday, we will start a study for nurses. 140,000 nurses are invited to participate. So we don't have a clear goal, and that's maybe something different than what you've heard today. But I'm going to give you some showcases about teachers, about the Brussels pedestrian area, about Behave. And what you also see is the teacher's time is an active registration. We truly find that people filling in self-reporting is essential, because not all sensors can really define the detail of an activity. What a teacher is doing, that can be very broad or very detailed. So that's important. In the Brussels pedestrian area, the study there, we also use passive registration with the Behave study, which is actually a panel of people which we are now setting up. There we will also add machine learning. I will also close my presentation why it can be ESS relevant. So the history of time use research. Time use data is today collected all around the world. There is not a single country, I think, well, there are probably some, who don't collect time use research data. Even today, we are setting up a study from our research group in Vietnam. So in Vietnam, they are now collecting time use research. But it started actually 100 years ago with Bevans, Susanek, actually looking into how people work, how they spend their leisure, but also more to an economical situation, how females are doing agricultural work. But time use research as a methodology to capture behavioral data really became important in the 60s with the Zalai study, where Zalai did a multinational study, 12 countries, and he used the same methodology. So he could compare what people were doing over different countries. So he standardized his methodology. And certainly the years after that, that methodology became very important for academics, and they asked actually to Eurostat to take up an important role and to organize and to further standardize this methodology. So in the end of previous century, there was a Eurostat working party. From out of that, there were HETES guidelines. And now over 20 countries in Europe, even more, are collecting data on and on and on. So we really have comparable data. In Wiesbaden in 2011, actually here it was decided that this methodology should be modernized, so it can collect even better data, even more accurate data. And that's what we are doing now within our working group at Eurostat. And Europe is not alone. Actually, today they are looking very much to Europe. Europe is really, let's say, the place where other continents are looking to. So we have relations with Canada, Australia, South Korea, and we also have some important international associations like the UNSD and IATUR. And actually the expected result would be that in 2025 we have a methodology that's being adopted in entire Europe and can collect data online and continuously. But also, of course, I'm from Belgium, and Belgium has an important position, at least I hope. And we have, with our research group, it actually means TOR. TOR is Tempus Omnia Revelat, time reveals everything. Again, when you know the people's time, you know how they live, and you can use it in policy. But we have a very good relationship with Statistics Belgium, who in the past collected the paper and pencil diary in 99, 04 and 13 within his citizens, people living in Belgium. In 2021 we will hope to go online and hopefully also with our methodology. At least today we have a project going on within Europe where we will try to bring MOTIS to other countries. That project is being called SourceTM, Software Outreach and Redevelopment, to collect e-data through MOTIS. Actually, what is the added value of time use research? And that's what I already said before, is that going far beyond the mere budgeting of durations. We truly believe that if you want to know what people are doing, you have to have the context. And the context, there are multiple dimensions. You have the spatial dimension, you have the social dimension, you have the personal dimensions, and the temporal dimension. So if you can grasp information on all of those contexts, then you can really try to understand what people are doing. And based on that, you can have your social policy. Because what people are doing can have a reason in the past. And the past is not maybe that far away. Why are people, certainly in Belgium, always in traffic jams? It's because they have to put their children to school. And as long as the school hours doesn't change, people will be queuing towards Brussels. This is how it was in the past. That's a booklet where people really have to write down what they have done, primary activity, secondary activity, their place, and with whom they spend their time. Of course, this is really expensive, response rates drop, and people get annoyed. That's basically it. So that's the reason why we developed MOTIS. So how do we do it? And what's important in our software methodology is that we, of course, capture the behavior and the context online, and that we start, actually, maybe it's different from the other presentation, the previous presentation, we start from active registration and we add on passive registration. So active means that people register activities themselves in a design tool in a hosted web environment, while passive registration is that you get information via devices and use an API key to get that information in. So active registration, we have a designed application for it, a web app and a mobile app. People can use them both, so you can use your own device as you wish so. This is one of the screenshots where people select their beginning and ending time, and then depending on which kind of activity people are doing, you can ask different contextual questions that add on the information you received from filling in the activity. So the context can be activity or situation specific, or we can also push notifications towards the user, the cell phone from the user, for instance, and so you get more deep information. And the beautiful thing about this, it's there for which kind of study you want to perform or to research. Of course, it doesn't have to be for one specific study. Passive registration means that you have information coming in from sensors, from wearables, from tagging a certain place. You can either use that information as paradata, but you can also use that information to push extra questions to the user. For instance, we are doing a study, a renovative study for Velux, where if the indoor temperature rises, that we can ask the people living in that house, how comfortable do you feel with indoor temperature? And then, of course, there are 3 people in the same room, and they respond differently because there is no single person who is the same. So then you have a really nice variation of the situation. How do we define all the studies? I already said it, of course, is that we have the front office of Motus, which is an application which runs on the web and mobile, which are being used by the respondents themselves. But we also have the Motus builder, which is actually the back office. And there you have the possibility to define a research in 4 phases: a design phase, a collect phase, an analyze phase, and an advice phase. It's entirely our own product, so we add on different functions beneath it. So design, that actually means you can choose which kind of devices you are willing to use in your study. Survey, that you build your own questionnaires which you can attach as context variables. Diary, indeed, the content of a diary, what people are doing, it can be very different from study to study. Communication, how are you going to interact with persons? Because it's also very important that if people don't register, for instance, or don't fill in something, that you send them a message to further cooperate. Collect will also mean that the software is available in multiple languages. People can even change from language to language when they're participating. Research is important because all of these elements needs to be combined in a certain flow. When you build that flow and you push on the start button, then automatically people are invited, automatically people are followed up, and data comes in. That's also the reason why we were able to collect in 2 months' time nearly 1 million activities of teachers in Belgium, because it goes automatically. Invitation, okay, how do they cooperate? How do you invite them? That's important. But we are also building to, for instance, a dashboard where our funders from our research can follow the study itself. Analyze, of course, you have to prepare the data. The system of Motus will let the data in, will clean the data, and will make the databases available with the metadata attached. But we also go further. We will have quality requirements, and it's certainly also possible to compute information straight away out of the system, or at least we are improving in that as well. Visualization is also important because if you want people to let them participate, you also have to give data back to the users, but also to a larger public. If we want, as a scientist, be relevant, stay relevant in our society, then we don't not only have to catch data from respondents, we have them to give them insights back. So visualization is also important. Okay, some examples, some showcases. Nevertheless, last year we have done 12 projects with Motus. In total, 80,000 participants used Motus. So I'm only going to give a few examples. So what did we do with it? So active registration for the teachers project. I already named some figures. 10,000 teachers, 70,000 diary days. In school and vacation period, 7 days, 1 million activities. So this was a question from the Ministry of Education, is how much do teachers work, but also, what do they do, in which kind of circumstances, and which are the problems? We need to understand why teachers say they have such a heavy profession, and you don't find it in a single average. They work 38 hours, they work 48 hours, but I know people who are happy and they work 60 hours. But I also know that some people work only 32 hours and are really unhappy. So the answer is within the context. So this is a database that's being collected, now heavily used to have the debate with the social partners in Belgium. Actually, also this database will be part of the big data hackathon in March. So this is what I said, the research flow. This is what you build within MOTIS, and where you can define every step that a respondent have to go through. So we had the media coverage where labor unions, government, third parties were involved. You have the invitation being sent to the respondent with some reminders and so on. You have the distribution algorithm, but actually in total 16,000 teachers wanted to participate. And we had let's say a research period of 2 months. And of course, if everybody wants to participate on the same moment, you have 10,000, 12,000 people starting in the same week, but that doesn't give a view over a longer period, a semester or so. So what we did is, with an algorithm, a dispersion of their starting time. Then they filled in a pre-questionnaire, the time diver 7 days, and a post-questionnaire. This, okay, it is in Dutch. This is one of the visuals that people saw, their timeline, the moments, what they did, but also the context of the activity. And this is for, as an example, one of the outcomes, where for primary school and for secondary school you have the average time they work, but also the activities more detailed. And here are only 8 activities shown, but in total we had 51 activities, which is fairly detailed, but also when and where they performed their activities. This is at least the when. So you see a time overview for every 10 minutes if the teacher was working, and that on aggregated phase. So you see before noon, afternoon, but also evening work is very much present, even on a Sunday evening. Second example is the pedestrian area, where we will have the possibility to active registration, but also where if people enter the pedestrian area in Brussels, that they will send a notification, and with that notification also a small questionnaire. So entering, exit, but also point of interest can be made available, and we also follow what people are doing or where they are stepping within that pedestrian zone. So we only activate the sensors at the moment it's most interesting for the study. So these are the zones. This is Brussels, this is the pedestrian area. This is, for instance, a part of the pedestrian area, the Rogier area. So if people come in the Rogier area, we can ask them specific questions about that. So these are some of the questions. Why are you visiting the pedestrian zone today? You have a number of options, but also the funder wants to know how would you qualify the sound, the appearance, the smell today, which gives you context about appreciation of Brussels or the pedestrian area. It's very interesting, hopefully. This is controlled tracking, where people, if they come into the zone, they are tracked, and when they're leaving the zone, the tracking stops. Yeah. Interaction with geofences. So you can, within a geofence, have multiple sub-geofences, which you can use to build up a profile of people, to know how much, how many times they come in a certain zone, etc., etc. For the future, we will set up a Behave panel where we will have 5,000 to 10,000 people in the panel, and they just keep on registering their time use, or we have sensors running at the same moment, so where we continuously have data. So we will go from understanding to even make it possible to change people's life, or to see how their life is changing themselves. If you go from one living situation to another, if you live with your girlfriend and then suddenly it takes 9 months, you are a parent. So then you really can see the changes. But we will also go to a situation where we can predict what people will do. And this is what you see here. So the active and the passive registration, you know already. But certainly when we have the database or the respondent level in place, it will be possible that if I'm walking towards the train, my sensor will pick it up. But at a certain moment of the year, probably when I have vacation, I will not walk to the train like I do every morning when I go to work. Then the database come in a certain situation where it says, okay, normally at 7:10, 7:32, you should be walking towards your train. And then the system will send a push notification to the respondent and just ask simply, are you walking towards the train? If that information is correct, if it's not correct, then the model will adapt. But it's compared to a database of respondents. We are innovating, hopefully more and more. So we will include more sensors. But the essence is still, we need active registration. We can add passive registration, is important. But since we build up the system ourselves, we also have high values to quality. And we hope that the respondents will have less respondent burden, that's for sure. ESS relevant, and that's the last slide. So we think, or we hope, that the system we have built can be made available for other national statistics as well. So we want to have a shareable tool, which is SCPA compliant. It has to have some sort of layer that other administrations can use and build up their own researches. So in the next few years, you will probably, hopefully, hear about the source TM project. And this is actually a way in the strategy of standardization, where the software tools that are chosen by Eurostat will be cataloged, but also Eurostat has been in a process of inventory of different sources and tools that are available. That's a project being done by Sogeti as well. And hopefully, with the add-on of Motus, we can come to an innovative solution which is available at least in 2025. Okay, thank you very much. If you want to reach me, you can also find my details here. Thank you.